Hello friends, this is Mrs. Dennis, and today our lesson 3 read aloud is called Vertebrates or Invertebrate. Now when we introduce our read alouds, we always start with our vocabulary. So our first vocabulary word is spine, and your spine is your backbone. So those words are synonymous. We have vertebrates, animals that have a backbone. Invertebrates, animals that do not have a backbone. So we have some additional vocabulary for this particular lesson. And the first vocabulary word that we have is column. Now, you do not have to put these vocabulary words into your vocabulary journal. I'm just going to tell you what they are and tell you what they mean. So we have column, a set of objects arranged in a vertical or up and down arrangement. Or a column can be a supporting base. Exoskeleton, the tough, rigid outer covering that invertebrate animals have for protection and to keep their bodies from drying out. Nerves, parts of the body that send messages to and from the brain through the spinal cord. So here are your columns. Here is your exoskeleton, and then that's just a picture of your nerves. So we're going to talk about classification within this chapter. So my question to you is, what is classification? Well, guess what? We haven't talked about it yet. So I'm going to tell you what classification is. It is a grouping together of things based on how they are alike and separating of things based on how they are different. So we group them together based on how they're alike, and then we're going to separate them from that same pile based on how they're different. And that's how we classify things. So that's classification. So I'm going to start the read aloud for you. So after listening to this story, I want you to be able to determine the main point, the main idea, and supporting details of the passage from this read aloud. So here we go. Hello, everybody. Rattenborough, world traveler and presenter of animals, back for another exciting day of slide show and tell. Remember my friend Hilda the hippo? We are actually like her. Do you know how? We are all vertebrates. That's right. Vertebrates have backbones. And animals without backbones are called invertebrates. Because you and I are both vertebrates, we'll talk about vertebrates first. Let's take a look at the hippopotamus. When you look at the outside of an animal, you can't see the backbone because it is on the inside. But sometimes you can tell where the backbone is. Under a vertebrate's skin, there is a ridge. This is the backbone or spine that starts near its head and runs all the way down its back to its tail. Find your backbone again. Remember those bumpy bones? Each bump you feel is a separate vertebrae. They form a row from your neck all the way down your back to your tailbone. Your spine serves a very important purpose. Your spine protects your spinal cord, that large bundle of nerves that sends messages from your brain to every part of your body. Let's look at the backbones of the 5 animal species to which my 5 friends belong. We've seen that a hippopotamus has a backbone. Now let's look at one of Ebenezer's fellow eggers. Its backbone or spinal column helps it hold its head up high and protects its spinal cord, like the eggers. Ebenezer could not live without his backbone. All birds have backbones and are vertebrae. Snakes don't look like they have backbones, but they do. Even though snakes slither or slip and slide along, they absolutely do have backbones. A snake's vertebrae, like anacondas, run the length of its body and swing low to the ground as its muscles help it move along the ground or climb up trees. A pair of ribs is attached to each vertebra protecting the body parts inside the snake's body. All reptiles have backbones. So, you can't always tell from the outside whether an animal is a vertebrate with a spine or a backbone, or whether it's an invertebrate. How about fish? Would you say fish have backbones? The answer is yes. All fish have backbones, just as reptiles, birds, and mammals do. It's very tricky to see, but if you took an X-ray of its body, you would see that all the other tiny bones that make up the skeleton of the fish are connected to its spine. Paolo told me that even though all fish have backbones, some fish, like sharks and stingrays, have backbones that are made of lighter and more bendable cartilage instead of hard bone, allowing them to be more flexible and travel more quickly. That leaves amphibians. Take a look at my animal friends one more time. Pay close attention to the toad next to Tabitha. It's hard to tell when you look at Toad's body that there is a backbone inside. Now tell me, do toads have backbones? Yes, to be sure, they certainly do. Toads are vertebrates. All amphibians have backbones. That means that all 5 of the animals you've seen today are vertebrates. They all have backbones. The question I'm going to present to you students is, do all animals on Earth have backbones? What are your predictions, friends? We know that mammals, which include hippopotami, me, you, birds, fish, reptiles, and amphibians, are all vertebrates too. Have we covered all the animal groups on Earth? Ha! Trick question. If you said no, your predictions were correct. Do you remember if there are more vertebrates or invertebrates on Earth? Good ideas. Look at this image that I shared with you earlier. More than 95% of animal species are invertebrates, and insects are the biggest group of invertebrates. And there are so many invertebrates yet to be discovered and classified. As you can see, vertebrates are actually only a teeny tiny group on Earth. Because we tend to think that and talk mostly about vertebrates, we sometimes forget that most of the animals in the world are actually invertebrates. And most of those animals are insects. Think how many insects there must be on our planet. They make up 3/4 of all species in the animal kingdom. Can you name a few of the many animals in the insect group? Sure you can. Flies, wasps, beetles, cockroaches, ladybugs, and butterflies are all insects. There are surely a lot more species of insects than there are species of amphibians, mammals, birds, fish, and reptiles all put together. Even though insects are by far the largest group of invertebrates, they are not the only invertebrates. Here's another question for you to think about. Close your eyes. Pretend you are a taxonomist. Can you think of any other animals without backbones? Here's a hint. Instead of internal vertebrae, these animals have an external or outer hard body covering. The largest group of invertebrates is made up of arthropods. Insects make up the largest group of arthropods. Another large group of arthropods includes arachnids. Spiders are arachnids and are so tricky. And so are ticks, daddy longlegs, and scorpions. Insects have 6 legs and 3 body parts. The ant in this image has very long antennae. They almost look like legs. In comparison, arachnids have 8 legs and 2 body parts. Instead of having flexible inner skeletons, all of the arthropods wear a tough exoskeleton or protective covering on the outside. I bet you can recognize some of these common examples of insects and arachnids. A crustacean is another kind of invertebrate and also a type of arthropod. Crustaceans have exoskeletons and usually live in water. Copepods are the smallest of the crustaceans. They are barely visible, but they are a very important source of food for fish in the ocean. Can you think of other animals that are classified as crustaceans? Good ideas. Some of the more common crustaceans include shrimp, lobsters, fiddler crabs, and blue crabs. These animals all have a hard exoskeleton, which protects the body and keeps it from drying out. Have you ever seen a crab? If you eat a blue crab like this one or a lobster, you have to remove its hard exoskeleton to find the tasty meat inside. Snails, jellyfish, and earthworms are also invertebrates. Other spineless creatures include coral, sea anemones, and sea stars. Many invertebrates are small and hidden and may not even seem like animals, but they are by far the largest group of animals populating the earth. What a lot of ways there are to classify animals. The purpose of this classification system is to understand each organism better by the characteristics that make it unique. Vertebrates and invertebrates are two types of animals in the world of taxonomy. It is just one way of classifying animals, but I think it is a very helpful way, don't you? You and I may not look at all alike or much like Ebenezer, Tabitha, or Anna, but we have a very distinct similarity to one another. We all have backbones. Look at this chart. It shows how a group of familiar organisms are related to each other. On the top row, you can see a group of living organisms: a house cat, a mountain lion, a tiger, a seal, a turtle, a grasshopper, and a tree. In the next row, titled Kingdom, notice that one of the living organisms is no longer included: the tree. The tree actually belongs to a different kingdom. This row now shows only organisms that are part of the animal kingdom. The next row, titled Phylum, the grasshopper is no longer included, and the rest of the animals represented here are vertebrates, part of the Chordata phylum. In looking at the class row, you may notice that the turtle is no longer included. The turtle is in the reptile class, and all of the other animals shown are mammals. In the row labeled Order, the mouse is not included because it is not a carnivore like the other animals shown. What's true about all the animals on the next row? Family. That's right. They are all different types of cats. In the genus row, you can see the house cat, mountain lion are more closely related than the tiger. And that very last row represents one specific animal, a species of house cat. This process of starting out with many animals and ending up with just one is called the process of elimination. As we went down the list, we eliminated or removed any animal that no longer had anything in common. Friends, that is the end of our read aloud for this particular chapter. You are going to have some discussion questions, and some of them are gonna repeat. You're gonna see these discussion questions over and over. For example, what is a vertebrate? What is an invertebrate? What is another name for a backbone? What very large group of animals is not in the vertebrate group? So these are the questions that I'm going to ask you in our discussion. If you need to listen to the story again, please feel free to do so. That's all for now.